So welcome back again to another Elite Dangerous video, and it's premium beta time, isn't it? So what has changed? Well, really it's Alpha 4, but just a 2 week later release to the premium beta players. So that's why I haven't really felt the need to contribute a fat lot, because the game hasn't really changed. There's been a few minor bug fixes, but nothing major. But obviously the one big thing is that suddenly there's a big injection of players into the game. And certainly if you look at the forums, the general premise seems to be difficulty levels, particularly around combat, all the same comments and bugs are getting reported. I think my main point maybe for the premium beta players, and this is like a reassuring point, is, you know, with all the feedback about docking being hard or combat or just general complexity of gameplay, these are all the same issues that were raised at the start of Alpha. You know, everybody was piping up with exactly the same thoughts, which I don't mean in a derogatory way. I mean, you know, this is kind of the reaction that generally that the game seems to get in the first instance. I suspect most of the time all you need to do is just give it some time, practice, and you'll find it gets easier. There is obviously a whole argument around what the balance of the game should be and the kind of gameplay level that it should be aimed at. And I'm not really going to go into that because everybody's going to have their opinion. I think the balance is about right. But obviously, you know, it's not a finished product yet, so it's a bit hard to call on what the final game is going to be like. So really we should all bear that in mind, I think. Looking at then the kind of comments, if I thought maybe took a look at combat, particularly for the early phases of the game. Basically what most people are going to be doing in the start is farming credits. You start off with Sidewinder, very little cargo space, so realistically the most efficient way of getting money in the early part of the game is combat, and that is typically going into the low intensity combat zones and just milking credits there by shooting NPCs. You can get generally about 500 credits a kill, 400 to 500. You can, in some of the later phases, go into some of the anarchy systems and the asteroid belts there and make a lot more, make kind of anything from 500 to a couple of thousand a kill. But with a basic spec Sidewinder, you're probably not going to last very long there, particularly if you're in your early phases of learning the game and aren't that handy yet at combat. So head to one of the low intensity zones, get yourself a couple of thousand credits and strap another pulse laser into your Sidewinder, and basically just keep going back to that zone with a standard Sidewinder with 2 pulse lasers, and it should be fairly easy to make credits fairly quickly. I've been playing about 3 hours of gameplay now since it was released on Friday, and I'm up to just over 40,000 credits. So it's not, you know, at 500 credits a kill, it's fairly easy grind up to that kind of level. What would you want the credits for? Good question. Probably a lot of people are going for one of the bigger ships. The Anacondas and the Lacons are millions of credits away, so that is going to definitely be a very long grind there. Really trading is going to be your step up to the big ships. But in the early phases of the game, if you're after either an Eagle or a Cobra, an Eagle is basically 40,000 credits, but you're going to need a bit of a buffer on top of that to kit it out with decent weapons and an insurance payout should you lose it. So you probably want to be aiming at sort of 60,000 credits, I would think, 55, 60,000 credits for an Eagle. If you want a Cobra, they're just over 100,000, but again, with weapons and hull upgrades and all that kind of stuff, 130 to 150,000 maybe is you want to be aiming at. Now, one thing I will point out, as I think is fairly common knowledge, but I'll point it out just in case, if you're ultimately after the Cobra, I would just grind towards the Cobra in one step. When you get the Eagle, when you come to sell it, you don't get any trading value for it, so you're basically peeing away 50 grand there and then. So if you're after a Cobra, just grind to the Cobra. If you're after an Eagle, no problems. Okay, so let's go and have a look at some NPC kind of combat, and then after that I'll go on to real world player combat, which is a wholly different ball game.
we're off to low intensity zone then, conflict zone. Probably a good place to do this. It's where most people are going to start off. It's a fairly easy place to sit and milk credits, and it's full of NPCs. So things to watch are obviously power distribution, but also the side slipping, and obviously just practicing your aim is one of the core skills which you're just going to have to get practicing. So once we're in there, you want to obviously find out where the action is. So observe your radar, you'll get all the points start to warp in. Here we go, they're kind of up and behind me. So we'll spin round, power to engines, and let's boost our way in there. Let's not forget to choose a faction as well. Iranian will be the easier way to start at first, and then we line up on a target, and you can see here, watch my thumbs as I'm kind of distributing power to weapons when we engage a target. So these federal fighters, as you can see, they go down very quick, so that's a nice quick easy 500 credits if you want to pick on those. Here we're taking on a Cobra, so a bit harder work, but you can see at the moment we're kind of power to systems and engines, but then we can redirect that when we engage. You can see it's all directed to weapons now, and we're doing a bit of a joust here, a head-on with a Cobra. Start slipping downwards. Watch the space dust, as it's called, little white flecks that show the direction of travel. So here we're starting to sideways slip just to keep on him and take him out. Lots of help from some other NPCs there. Let's find another target. So we're heading back here, and then you'll notice I spot a ship warping on the left here. There. So I spot him, think, oh, we'll make that a nice new convenient target, spin round to him. So at the moment it's all power to engines, but then as soon as he's in firing range, it's over to the weapons. Quick move of your thumb, and then it's cut power. And in this instance we're doing quite a common manoeuvre with Cobras, which is a vertical slip and just hover straight next to him, and you can wear him down very easily. It only seems to happen with NPC Cobras, this does. That's another one down, just vertical thrust. Here's a sideways slipping example. So you can see drifting along next to the NPC. NPCs don't seem to have an ability to use any kind of sidewards or vertical slipping, you'll notice. Here's what's commonly referred to as a joust, a bit of a head-on. So my shield's taking it, we start to slip downwards as we get close to the target. We don't want to go head-to-head with him right up to close range. But here you can see that very important balancing of downwards thrust and pulling up just to keep him in our targets, and it turns into a bit of a downward slip now, and there we go, finish him off. Another vertical slip, this time upwards, keeps him nice and right in our target. An example of what not to do, I suppose. I start engaging this Cobra, quite obviously seeing that Anaconda just to the left there. Get into a bit of a joust with him. Probably would have managed the Cobra no problem. But then all things change. The Anaconda starts opening up, and it's time to bug out and run. And I think, don't be afraid to do that. Know when you're beaten. So here we are, all power to shields and run away, keeping them right at 6 o'clock on our radar, so we're going straight away from them. I'm not really prioritising shields over engines at the moment because the shields don't come back up for a good, what is it, 20-30 seconds or so. Here we go, the start's come up now, but it's more important to get some distance and get out of their weapons range. My frame shift I'll start charging up. My intention is to get back to the starport and repair. And I'm just doing lots of random manoeuvres, keep that speed up, get away from them. Got no interest in really spinning around and returning fire, even with flight assist off even. It'd be out of range anyway. So it's just run. Don't be afraid to. Come back and live to fight another day. Now, real world players or commanders don't follow the same rules. They tend to use side slip, vertical slip, and it's nowhere near as easy. In this first example with poor old Malcolm here, just shows the point of putting yourself in, engineering yourself into a perfect position, i.e. right behind them, and opening fire first. And you can see now he's just about got round to even bearing his weapons on me, and his shields are down already. So, you know, it's lynching someone, but that's unfortunately the easiest way to gain an upper hand in combat. He's a much more manoeuvrable ship than me, as you can see. He's an Eagle versus my Cobra. But as long as I can keep some weapons on him, you can see it's not easy. But he's already down on his shields by the time he's even got round to returning fire on me, so in all fairness it's just a matter of time. You can see the vertical slipping is actually kind of translating to a backwards motion for me. I'm not actually thrusting backwards, but your ship carries its momentum basically. It doesn't respond immediately to any thrust, so it will carry on sliding in a direction that it was travelling until the thrusters can counter that movement basically. And there we go. So
target destroyed.
But, you know, you could argue not entirely fair. I just jumped him from behind. The other one is to pick on somebody who's already in combat. So here we've got good old Neon Raven. Love his videos. And he's in combat with another commander, and then I just come along and pick on him while he's already busy. Now he does the absolutely right thing of finishing off the target that he's focusing on. It shouldn't take long for him to finish off that Sidewinder, but then for my purpose it gives me an advantage to wear him down. His shields are out now, he's down to 50% hull, and he just clears the Sidewinder now. There we go. So now he can turn his attention to me, but you know he's got 16% hull left. It's again not fair, but that's the game, unfortunately, depending on your point of view. He does get his own back though, don't worry. Here we are back in there again, behind him here.
Target shields offline.
This was going fairly well, and then I honestly crashed a desktop. I didn't just end this video because I had a strop and lost. This was a CTD example, but you know, here we are, we're going head to head. Flicking power to engines now to get round to him, and then back to weapons now. Engines to weapons to engines to weapons.
Shields
Watching those asteroids here as well. And it's almost done, and then it crashed. Came back into the instance here and was doing some NPC combat. I think this is one of the things you need to do, is keep an eye on that radar and look out for those hollow triangles or squares, but any hollow icon on the radar is another real world player, and chances are if you don't target them, they'll probably target you, particularly if they're red. So you can see I'm kind of toying with this NPC, making a right meal of it, to be honest. And then up ahead we just saw a triangle there, look, come on the radar, so I target that straight away. That's Mr. Pete Williams, and I'm aware of another square on there, so I cycle to that and check out who it is, and it's Mr. Raven again. And I know from the previous sessions we've had that we're going to go at it, so you know, it's prioritise your target. Now what I'm doing here is I thought, let's see if it's possible to evade. I kind of know the answer from earlier alpha phases, but you know, he's attacking me. I'm going to see if I can run away and get away from him. Now I've gone cold and I've deployed a heatsink, which will hopefully keep my heat down. But unfortunately, in this version of alpha at least, there's a problem where you only seem to carry one heatsink. So I've deployed all my heatsinks now, and I cannot drop any more. You certainly should have more than one. So I'm overheating now. He's chasing me. He's not managing to hit me. So hopefully the cold running is working, but ultimately I've got to jump behind a asteroid, come out of cold running, and dump some heat. And as I spin around and try and defend myself, it's all over really. Notice a bit of an overshoot here, so I kind of boost ahead to try and get some distance between me, but he turns very quickly. He's already on me. And in no time at all, you know what's going to happen. Don't try and rely too much on asteroids, by the way. They're not consistent across players. So you might see one in your game, but it might not actually be there in his, and there are cases where they can shoot through them. So running away, very difficult. Once your shields are out, you might as well consider going cold. It might buy you a few extra seconds. A little bit of a joust, so side slipping down, balancing between engines and weapons at the moment. Too much about shields. Once they're out, they're out. And I rather poorly decide to boost there, which puts distance between me and him. Lets him get some good shots on. Be very careful using boost. You don't want to be too far away from people. This goes kind of down to the wire, where it's 70% versus 40. It's now equal on the whole. It really is just a slogging match, this is now. And it's all over. Hats off, sir. And no instructional video can be without warning you of the inevitable faceplant into an asteroid that you will do at some point, particularly when trying to evade Sam the Destroyer in an anaconda. And if you can't laugh at it, then you really are taking the game too seriously. So here I have tried to evade Sam, who's gonna... I really don't fancy taking on anaconda, and...
Okay, so there you go. Watch those asteroids. One thing I would say is there wasn't really much showing of reverse thrusting there, which can be a valid thing to do. What I would warn you about is flying backwards and shooting is probably fine as an emergency kind of escape way of getting out of your target's sights if he's right behind you. But if you're using it to kind of just keep your distance from a target and fire on him, I would be very careful of doing it unless you know for a fact that you've got the advantage, you're going to win, yeah? In which case, because it's just going to turn into a laser fest, basically. So if you know you've got the upper hand in terms of shields and weapons, then prolonging that slogging match of laser fire can work by going backwards. But if not, you're purely exposing yourself to your enemy's gun sights for a longer period of time. You really want to be behind him or to the side of him. So there was no examples of going backwards there, but that can be useful occasionally, but just be careful of using it. Okay, I think that's enough. Hopefully that helps you get through those early phases of the game where it can feel like a bit of a grind, it can feel a bit everybody else is overpowering you. I would say check your targets, you know. In the early phases, when you see another real world player in the game, pay them attention straight away, very quickly. See what their intention is, particularly if they're red. To be honest, if they're red and they're a triangle, then they're fair game. You know, they've got their weapons out, they're targeting as an enemy. Get on them quick before they get on you, because generally the first person who gets into a position and fires is probably going to win, unfortunately. Unless you're in something vastly overpowered like an anaconda or something like that. But all of the things being equal, it's that simple. Okay, enough. Go out, enjoy the game. I hope it's been useful, and we'll see you again in a week or so, I guess, when I can think of something else to do a video about. See you later.